The first thing I noticed when I woke up was that the trees were closer. I don't mean that metaphorically or in a the forest is closing in kind of way. I mean, literally. The tree line, which had been maybe 50 yards from the cabin yesterday, was now only 20. I even checked the photos I'd taken the day before. The difference was undeniable. I told myself it was a trick of perspective, or the fog. Maybe I hadn't been paying attention. Maybe I just wanted this job to feel normal. But it didn't, not anymore. I made coffee, the kind they left in the cabinet, just a tin marked, drink this first, no brand, no label. The ground smelled like cinnamon and wet leaves. I brewed it anyway. It tasted fine. Not good, not bad, just fine, forgettable. I drank it because I needed to stay sharp, because the last thing I wanted to feel out here was tired. The radio crackled to life at 9 a.m. sharp. Just like yesterday, a voice distorted and hollow came through the static. Checkpoint 1, remain stationary. Observe silence between 9 and 9:15. Do not answer any calls. I froze. There were no phones in the cabin, not even a signal. And yet, something rang. Not a phone, a bell. Deep, metallic, like a cathedral bell echoing from somewhere deep in the trees. I didn't answer it. I sat perfectly still, staring at the trees through the observation window. They were moving, not swaying, shifting, like they were dragging themselves subtly across the moss and soil. They weren't supposed to move like that. At 9:15 exactly, the bell stopped. The radio crackled again. Good. Do not acknowledge the others. I asked who the others were. The radio hissed, then shut off. I decided to explore a bit. There were cameras placed along the perimeter of the clearing, ancient ones. CRT monitors inside the cabin displaying fuzzy black and white footage. Each camera was labeled with a different number and an emotion. Camera 1, hope, hope. Camera 2, regret. Camera 3, longing. Camera 4, grief. Camera 5 had no label, just static. That's the one I watched the most. Because once, just once, I saw something move in that feed. It looked like a person, but backwards, not walking backwards, arranged backwards. Limbs in the wrong order, head slightly blurred. The way it walked, it was like a memory playing in reverse. I tried to step outside that afternoon just to get air. But when I opened the front door, the world had changed. There was no sky, just black mist curling around the trees like smoke and water. The clearing no longer looked like it belonged to this world. It looked painted onto the surface of something else. The trees were breathing. Inhale, exhale, slow, rhythmic. The forest was alive, and it had noticed me. I shut the door, locked every bolt, covered the windows, and that's when I noticed the photo. Pinned to the wall next to the door in a frame I swear wasn't there this morning. It was a black and white photo of me, standing in the exact same cabin, wearing the exact same clothes, but in the photo, my eyes were missing. That night, the radio came back on. Checkpoint 2, light no fires after dark. Do not speak the names. I asked whose names. Silence. Then the radio whispered a name I didn't recognize. Kara. Just that. Whispered like it had to sneak past something larger listening just outside. The temperature dropped, the air inside the cabin went still, and from somewhere behind the wall I heard something whisper it back. Kara. Softer this time, like it was right next to me. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes open, watching shadows move across the ceiling that didn't have a source. Around 3 a.m., I heard scratching under the floorboards, then breathing, then the sound of footsteps, not above, not below, inside the walls. And they were pacing, back and forth, like they were waiting for me to break the rules. Day 3 started with a knock. 3 slow knocks on the cabin wall, not the door. The wall. I didn't answer, I didn't even move. The knock came again. Then a voice, muffled but perfectly clear. It's your relief. Time to switch shifts. I didn't move. The job description said nothing about relief. No one was supposed to come, and then I saw it, out the corner of my eye, through the peephole in the front door. A figure, standing in the mist, wearing the same uniform they gave me, but he didn't move like a person. He twitched, frame by frame, like a corrupted VHS tape. Then he raised his hand and knocked again. I turned off all the lights, sat in the corner with my back to the wall. The knocking stopped, but something whispered through the keyhole. You're already doing better than the last one. Then the voice was gone, and taped to the inside of the window was another photo. Same cabin, same pose, but now my mouth was missing too. I tried the radio. Static, but at exactly 11 a.m. it crackled with something new. It wasn't a voice this time, it was a recording of me screaming, begging, pleading to be let out. Then it looped again and again until the screams started sounding different, distorted, less like me, more animal. And then something replied in the background. I couldn't make out the words, but I felt them. It was a warning. Something was coming, and it had my voice. The trees are even closer now. The mist seeps through the cracks in the window frames. I've covered the vents, stuffed towels under the door, but it still gets in. Smells like burnt paper and snow. And sometimes, if I listen closely, I can hear the trees speaking to each other, not in words, in names. Over and over, they repeat them, a chorus of lost identities, and one of those names is mine. In the mirror. It happened around dawn, or at least I think it was dawn. There's no sunrise here, just a slow transition from pitch black to a kind of gray dimness, like the forest is deciding whether or not to let the light in. The mirror above the sink had always been a little off. Too clean, too new. It didn't match the rest of the cabin's outdated decor. It looked more like something installed in a hospital, polished perfect, out of place. I tapped it once out of boredom. Hollow. I tapped again, and this time it echoed. The mirror wasn't mounted on the wall. It was a panel. I pried it loose with a knife and found a compartment behind it. No wires, no plumbing, just a cassette tape, unlabeled, covered in dust. I hesitated, but I played it. It was a voice. Mine. Day 12. I made it to day 12. I think I'm the last one. If you're hearing this, don't open the floorboards. No matter what they say, no matter what you hear, the tape cut off. A second later, the radio clicked on. Checkpoint 3. Floor inspection required. Unseal the boards. Check for activity. I didn't move. The voice on the tape, my voice, had been terrified. The voice on the radio was calm, neutral, too calm. Almost like it didn't care what happened next. I waited an hour. Nothing changed. But then I noticed something new. The photos. There were now 3 of them on the wall. Each a picture of me in the cabin. Same pose, same angle. But in the newest one, I wasn't alone. There was something standing just behind me in the doorway. Tall, blurred, not fully formed, like it wasn't finished being imagined yet, and its hand was on my shoulder. That's when the knocking returned, but it wasn't coming from the door this time. It was underneath me, from beneath the floorboards. 3 knocks, then silence, then, in a voice that sounded almost exactly like mine, "It's me. Let me in." I didn't move. I didn't speak, but something whispered through the cracks in the wood, "You've already let me in once." I didn't sleep that night. I listened. The pacing behind the walls was back, but now there were 2 sets of footsteps. One slow, deliberate, the other erratic, off time, like something trying to match human rhythm but always just barely getting it wrong. They circled the cabin for hours, never knocking again, just waiting. The next morning, I made a mistake. I went outside, just a few feet. I wanted to see if the trees were still moving. They weren't. They were watching, not with eyes, with presence. Each trunk angled just slightly toward me, every branch drooping forward like antennae listening to my breath. I turned around to go back in, but the door was gone. Just gone. The cabin wall was smooth where the door had been. No seam, no knob. I panicked. Tried the windows. All of them reflected me, but not now. They showed different versions of me. One sleeping, one screaming, one standing still in a flooded room with branches growing from his mouth. I walked around the perimeter, once, twice. Then, on the 3rd loop, I found the door again, right where it should have been. But this time, it was open, and the inside of the cabin was completely dark. I hadn't left any lights on, but I hadn't turned them all off either. Still, the darkness inside was heavy, thick, like stepping into a submerged room. I entered, and the moment I did, I saw the photo wall had changed again. Now there were 4 photos, and in the newest one I was asleep in bed, with my mouth open, and something small and black crawling out. The radio clicked again, no voice this time, just static, followed by a low, looping hum, like a chant being played in reverse. It made my teeth itch. And then I heard something impossible, my voice. Not a recording, not an echo, my current voice, speaking words I hadn't said. "It's safe now, you can come out." I covered my ears. It kept going. "There's something you forgot, something you left under the bed." I hadn't looked under the bed since I got here. I hadn't wanted to, but now I had to know. I crouched, lifted the blanket, looked. There was no floor, just a hole, a deep black tunnel that seemed to go down forever. Cold air wafted out, and faint, rustling noises like whispers sliding over dead leaves. Then a voice, hoarse, broken, familiar. I never left. I just went deeper. I backed away, and that's when the wall to my right shifted. It didn't move. It turned. The whole wall rotated inward like a doorway made of gravity. Behind it, I saw a long hallway. Identical doors on either side. No lights. Just flickering shapes in the distance. And a small sign above the hallway entrance. Checkpoints continue below. I haven't stepped through yet. But the forest is closer again. The trees now press against the cabin itself. Branches tapping at the glass like fingers. There's a name written on the inside of my arm. I didn't put it there. It says, "Remember, there is no day 4." The job posted on Craigslist. It was vague. Just a black text ad on a white background. House sitter needed for remote property. $3,000 week. Must stay overnight. No guests. No GPS. No questions. I was broke. Unemployed. I thought it was too good to be true, but desperation does something to your judgment. I replied, figuring I'd never hear back. An hour later, my phone rang. The caller ID was blank. The man on the other end said his name was Ron. His voice was strange, almost like it was going through a filter or recorded ahead of time. He asked if I had a reliable vehicle and if I could be there by sunset tomorrow. I said yes. He gave me directions, not an address. Directions. Landmarks. Turn left at the rusted water tower. Take the gravel path past the mailbox with antlers nailed to it. When the trees start to look like they're leaning toward the road, you're close. I asked if there was a GPS pin. He said no. Then he hung up. I should have stopped there, but the promise of easy money. I told myself it was just some eccentric rich guy with a creepy sense of humor. I packed a bag, fueled up my car, and drove north. It took me almost 6 hours to find the place. The roads got worse the further I went. Potholes, dirt, stretches of nothing but forest. At one point, my phone's clock glitched and started counting backward. Just for a second, I laughed it off. Eventually, I saw it. A massive Victorian house sitting in the middle of a clearing. No driveway, no mailbox, no tire tracks. It looked abandoned, but the lights were on. There was a key under a stone near the porch. The stone was shaped like a human face, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. I told myself it was just erosion. Inside, the house was spotless, like someone had just cleaned it. But there were no signs of life. No family photos, no magazines, no groceries. Just bare furniture, perfectly arranged. And in the hallway, sitting on a narrow table, was a black rotary phone. As soon as I touched it, it rang. I didn't answer. That was my first mistake. There was a note on the kitchen table, typed, crisp. House sitting rules. 1, do not leave after midnight. 2, if the phone rings twice in a row, do not answer the second call. 3, if you hear footsteps in the attic, do not investigate. 4, do not go into the basement after dark. 5, never open the third floor door at the end of the hall. I chuckled. I figured it was part of the spooky ambiance. Maybe this guy liked to mess with his guests. That was my second mistake. The first night was quiet, too quiet. No animal sounds. No wind. The trees outside the windows didn't move. I wandered the house to kill time. The layout was confusing. Hallways seemed longer than they should be. One corridor changed wallpaper when I passed through it a second time. Then I realized my bag, which I'd left near the door, was gone. I found it upstairs, inside a room I hadn't entered yet. That room hadn't even been there when I passed by earlier, and in that room, the window was open. There were claw marks on the sill, on the inside. The second night, the phone rang again. Then it rang a second time. I let it go to voicemail, but then it rang a third time, a fourth, then stopped. A minute later, my own voice echoed through the static-filled voicemail. I'm not supposed to be here. I never was. They built this place out of people who disappeared. The message cut out, replaced by soft tapping behind the walls. I pressed my ear to the wood, and I heard it, repeating everything I said into the phone, word for word. Something was inside the walls. By the third night, I started seeing reflections that didn't match me. In the bathroom mirror, my reflection blinked before I did. In the hallway, a picture frame showed a staircase that didn't exist in the house. And once, just once, my reflection smiled when I wasn't. I turned every mirror around, but they turned back overnight. The fourth night, I opened the third floor door. I shouldn't have, but curiosity outweighed fear. Behind it wasn't a room. It was a long, dark corridor, ceiling low, air humid. It smelled like something had been breathing in there for years. Far down the corridor, something moved. I didn't wait to see what. I shut the door, locked it. It knocked gently every 5 minutes until sunrise. The attic was next. I wasn't supposed to go there, but when I heard footsteps above me at 2:33 a.m., perfectly spaced, always stopping above wherever I stood, I had to know. The attic was full of dust-covered furniture, old dolls, picture frames with faces scratched out, and a box labeled, "Watch before you leave." Inside, VHS tapes, dozens, all labeled with names and dates. One was labeled with my name, and the date, tomorrow. I found the VCR plugged into an old TV in the study. I watched one of the other tapes. It showed a guy about my age sitting in the same kitchen, reading, eating, sleeping. Then he started acting strange, paranoid, covering mirrors, crying. Eventually he stared into the camera and said, "It won't let you leave. Not really." Then he opened the basement door. The footage ended in static. I tried watching mine, the one with my name. It wouldn't play. But the tape inside the VCR was unlabeled. And when I hit play, it showed me, wearing what I was wearing, sitting exactly where I was sitting, but I wasn't moving. The fifth night, the basement door opened on its own. I nailed it shut. The next morning, the nails were on the kitchen table, bent into the shape of my initials. I left, got in my car, drove until I hit a gas station. The clerk stared at me like he recognized me. I asked for directions back to town. He just said, "Back from the gray house, huh?" I froze. He smiled and handed me a bottle of water. "Don't worry," he said. "You'll remember where it is when it's your turn to go back." I looked up the Craigslist listing again. It was gone. When I searched for Ron's number, nothing came up. My emails to him bounced back. Then I tried Googling my own name. No results. It's not even social media. It's like I'd never existed, like the house absorbed me. Now I get calls on that same black phone. I don't have one in my apartment, but I still hear it ringing, always twice, then silence. I never answer the second ring because I remember and I don't want to go back. There is no day 4. Final chapter. I didn't sleep again. Not really. The cabin hums at night now, like it's full of invisible machinery churning beneath the wood just under the skin of this place. The humming syncs up with my pulse. It gets louder when I'm afraid. It's been, I don't know how many days. The forest doesn't do time right. I still write day 4 in the logbook each morning out of habit, but the ink never dries. It just soaks into the page and vanishes. I should have left the moment I saw the door appear where the wall used to be. The moment the mirror gave me that cassette. The moment I heard my own voice crawling out from under the bed. But something about this place hooks into you. You start to believe there might be a reason for it all. That maybe if you solve the pattern, you'll leave with your mind intact. I was wrong. There is no pattern, just design. And now I know what I'm a part of. Last night, I finally walked through the wall. The hallway behind it wasn't infinite. It was worse. It was familiar. I knew the doors, the paint, the flicker of the overhead lights. They were from my childhood home. I opened one. It was a room from my grandmother's house. Exact. Down to the creak in the floorboard near the dresser, but there was no window, and on the wall was another photo of me. This one wasn't a photo. It was a moving image, a looping scene of me at the cabin desk, chewing my nails, staring blankly at the radio, occasionally mouthing words I wasn't saying, and behind me in the loop, a dark figure, motionless, closer every few seconds. I backed out of the room and closed the door. I opened the next, a hospital room. I recognized it too. My father's room from the week he died. Same drip, same chair, same TV playing static even though it was turned off. And again, there I was, sitting in the chair watching the static, eyes completely black, mouth open, and something crawling in. I ran. The hallway stretched and compressed. The floor went soft like walking on lungs. The doors began to breathe, opening and shutting in rhythm. I passed rooms that shouldn't exist. One full of my own teeth, arranged in careful spirals on the floor. One filled with clocks, each ticking inward. One where 100 versions of me were sleeping, curled around a tree stump in the center of the room. And that stump had a heartbeat. And in one room, I stopped, because I saw the cabin, the real one, from outside, but it was underwater, roots coiled around its base like anchors, holding it down, and a single eye, massive, milky, lidless, floated just above it, watching. not moving, just watching. I couldn't breathe until I heard it, my voice again, but weak now, fractured like it had been split into thousands of versions and glued back together wrong. There is no forest, there never was. You're in the tape now. And the hallway ended in a room made entirely of mirrors, and every mirror showed a different version of me, standing in a different season, in a different time. Some older, some barely human. One was just teeth and light. But all of them turned at the same time to face me, and they all whispered in unison, "It's time to wake up," I screamed. The mirrors shattered, but instead of glass, they broke into feathers, white ones, floating upward. And behind them, floating in that mirrored room, was the radio. Just the radio. No plug, no wires, just humming. It clicked on one final time. Final checkpoint, return the cabin to the forest. I didn't know what that meant, but the walls of the mirror room began to dissolve, revealing a giant void behind them. And at the center of that void was the cabin. My cabin. Rotated on its side, suspended in black air, like a toy forgotten in a pocket universe. I could see myself inside, walking in circles, looping through the same motions, stuck in a cycle, staring at photos that kept changing, pouring coffee that never got cold, listening to messages I hadn't recorded. I saw myself lift the floorboards, and I saw what was beneath. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a mouth, and it was swallowing me over and over. A loop I could not break. I woke up screaming, back in the chair, inside the cabin, rain hammering on the roof like it was alive. I looked at the photos. Now there were 6. The last one wasn't of me. It was of you. Reading this, listening, sitting in your room, thinking this is just a story. But I know where you are now, because there's a 7th photo, and it's still developing. Or checkpoint 1 all over again.